Krishna, dear devotees, and welcome to today's session. How are you doing? I pray that all is well with you and your families at this time. So, is there something right now that you're experiencing that has brought a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of confusion in your life right now? Is there something that a particular event or a particular person has really got you thinking very deeply about what is the meaning of all of this, and you're struggling to make sense of it? Well, I want to share with you that this is part of the process of life. And that's why we are studying this great text, the Bhagavad Gita, because a warrior, Arjuna, many years back, 5,000 years back, was perplexed in a very similar situation to where you are right now. And his situation was that he's a soldier, he's a commander of an army, and he didn't expect that his profession would one day bring him to a point where he would have to fight against his own family. And this is really creating a lot of trauma in his life right now, because he's confused between his heart and his mind, between his heart and his duty. What should he do? Should he actually fight and do his duty as a soldier and defend righteousness? Or should he follow his heart and run away from there and thus incur sinful reaction because he's been trained to defend Dharma? This is his job. So he's confused between the both, and he's listening to the counsel of Krishna, where Krishna is advising him on different levels of reality, how to observe. So the panacea, the hope, is coming in the form of knowledge. That unless you raise your consciousness to a higher level of thinking, of assessment, you're not going to be able to understand what's happening to you right now. Because your consciousness is only at the bodily level of consciousness right now. You're only experiencing the world from the body right now. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, there are deeper aspects to you that if you connect at that level, you can see the world from a bigger perspective. And ultimately, if you connect to the divine consciousness, then you can really see the reality of the world for what it is. So today we're moving on to verse number 28, where Krishna again is addressing this point of Arjuna. Na tvam sochitam aharasi. Arjun, do not lament. Your lamentation is because you're assessing the world just from your bodily experience. There's deeper level of experiences than just the human level that you're assessing from right now. So let's take a look at this. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse number 28. Avyaktadin bhutani vyakta madhyani bharataha avyaktani dhanani eva tatra kapari devana. Translation: all created beings are unmanifested in their beginning, manifested in their interim state, and unmanifested again when annihilated. So what need is there for lamentation? So we see now, this is the fourth verse where Krishna is addressing this lamentation of Arjuna. He's using 4 consecutive verses to tell Arjuna, do not lament, Arjuna. You are lamenting because you're only assessing yourself from the bodily platform. There's a divine dimension to who you are, and that can only be assessed from the level of the soul. But in order to reach that level, you have to raise your consciousness. You have to raise your consciousness from the bodily level to the divine level, from your bodily experience to your divine experience at the level of the soul. And therefore, he's taken almost 20 verses thus far to describe this dimension of reality to Arjuna, that you are really the soul. You are existing on the spiritual platform, and if you become aware of the world from that dimension, then you have 3 levels of reality to assess. In that way, you are empowered with 3 levels of knowledge: the gross bodily level, the subtle level, and the spiritual level. So that level of assessment of the world will be the most empowering to you. Right now, your emotions are overwhelming you, and that's understandable. But in order to move ahead, to progress, you have to connect to that spiritual dimension of yourself, the soul. And therefore, he's explained the soul in such detail. So in today's verse, Krishna is described in the Vyaktya and Avyakta, the cycle, the manifestation of how the body occurs and then how it goes back. So it's the cycle of things. We were describing yesterday that everything works in a cycle. So Krishna is explaining to Arjuna that even your understanding of this body is within a cycle. It works according to time. That this suit, this human suit or this birthday suit that we have, this works according to time. This is the tailor. The tailor who has made the suit of this body is time. And if we don't understand this and we think this is the absolute reality, then that's going to create a lot of pain in our lives, because we're going to live under the understanding that this is real, that this is permanent, that this is an absolute experience. And if we just assess with a little bit of knowledge, we can see that it's not so. So there's a fundamental point that Krishna is bringing out here, that misunderstanding can create you a lot of pain. And we know that in life, right? How many times have we misunderstood something and got worked up about it, created so much of fear about it? And right now we can see this coronavirus in different phases of what it is. It has created misunderstanding on so many levels. At one time, we thought, it's just another virus like the flu. And then we underestimated it and it wiped out so much of the population. And then it created fear, and then it forced us to go and learn something about this virus. So that's knowledge. And once we got knowledge of the virus, we can assess it now, and there's vaccines coming out. So knowledge is the key. If you want to understand the pain of life that you're going through, you have to develop knowledge. And therefore Krishna is guiding Arjuna. Arjun, you have to raise your consciousness higher than what you're experiencing. If you're just going to be stuck on the experiencing level of the body, you're not going to understand. Understanding comes from knowledge. So you have to raise your consciousness in order to understand what's going on. So Krishna is doing that by making Arjuna aware of the body. So he's giving a master class on the level of the body, of how it's created, how it works, how it dwindles, how it dies off. He's completely explaining in the last 20 verses the different levels of existence of this body. And he's clearly defining to Arjuna that you as the person is not this body. You live and exist on a deeper realm than this body. And the only way you can become aware of this is through knowledge. Unless you become aware of yourself through knowledge, you're not going to know who you are. You're going to think you're this body. You're going to experience the pains and traumas and all the experiences of life through this body. And you're going to live and die as this body. And we've proven it through the discussions that we've been having in the last 20 verses. So there's a very interesting purport Prabhupada adds here. Accepting that there are two classes of philosophers. So in today's discussion, Prabhupada is bringing out the understanding that there are two world views and people live their lives according to that world view. So let's see what this world view is. So he goes on, one believing in the existence of the soul and the other not believing in the existence of the soul. So these are the two fundamental points, that one worldview believes in the existence of the soul and the other one does not. Dear devotee, I'd like to ask you, what's your worldview right now? Do you assess the world from the level of the soul, or do you assess the world from the level of the body? Because these two different worldviews is going to give two different results, is going to give two different understandings, therefore two different lifestyles. You're going to live your life according to the body experience and have those experiences, and that's lamentation, pain, confusion, bewilderment. Or you could live your life according to the level of the soul, which is the spiritual dimension, and that is according to knowledge and understanding. and have a different experience of life. So what you're experiencing right now is according to your worldview. You can see this is a very important question we have to ask ourselves, because by that choice, the way we experience life will be different. So he goes on to say, there is no cause for lamentation in either case. So he's explaining whichever worldview you take, whether you're experiencing the world from the soul or you're experiencing the world from the body. Either of those, if you come to proper understanding, so the fact that you're going through trauma right now, that you're experiencing something that you're lamenting about, means that you have not understood that worldview in its complete. Have you taken time to understand and study life? So this is what he's questioning. So he goes on by explaining the first one. Non-believers in the existence of the soul are called atheists by followers of Vedic wisdom. Yet even if, for argument's sake, we accept this atheistic theory, there is still no cause for lamentation. Apart from the separate existence of the soul, the material elements remain unmanifested before creation. From this subtle state of non-manifestation comes manifestation. So he's explaining that even if you think that your body has come from just chemicals, and we discussed that, right? We discussed that the total value of the chemicals of the body was 210 rupees. Things are cheap in India. But we realize the value of a human being is not 210 rupees. The value of a person is definitely more fundamental than that. So even if you think of the body is chemicals, it came up from chemicals, it lived and it went back to chemicals. So what are you lamenting about? It came up from unmanifestation, from chemicals, and then it manifested as the body, and then it went back to unmanifestation. So like it says in the Bible, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. So even if you see the world like that, still there's nothing to lament, because chemicals came up and chemicals went back. There's no loss. So he continues by giving an example, and he says here, just as from ether air is generated, from air fire is generated, and from fire water is generated, from water earth becomes manifested. From the earth many varieties of manifestation take place. So what he's describing here is a deep fundamental principle found in the Vedas called Sankhya.
There are these pillars which are rust proof in India. Do you know about them? The most famous one is in front of Qutub Minar. Yes? This is a 1,000-year pillar, 1,000 years old, and even the pollution of Delhi has not touched it. Yeah? It is still not rusting. Yeah? And the other one, this is near Bangalore, in Kollur. Yeah? Where there is 750 centimeters of rain a year, 6 to 8 months a year, and this has been there for 2,400 years. Yeah, and it is rust proof, no rusting. About the second pillar, what is more interesting is it was not built by any expert. It was built by the tribal, the aboriginals of that area, to welcome Adi Shankaracharya when he came to their village. Yeah. So this technology was there, not even with like the learned Brahmins or something like that. It was available to the tribals. Yeah. Then there is this mystery of zinc. You know, India held the sole knowledge of how to remove zinc from zinc ore for 4,000 years. Yeah, because zinc, it's a very, very interesting thing. Zinc, from the ore, the zinc becomes liquid at 997 degrees Celsius. But that same zinc then vaporizes and becomes gas at 1000 degrees Celsius. So it is only a 3-degree window that you have to pull that zinc out. And it is incredibly difficult. All the zinc in the world was made only by India. Nobody else could make it only. Yeah. Then one Chinese fellow stole it. Yeah. And then one British fellow stole it from the Chinese. So there was this guy called William Champion who made the first zinc distillery in Great Britain in the year 1543. Before that, for 4,000 years. Now, this is a nice shloka in the praise of Lord Krishna. When you look at this shloka, do you think that there is anything special about it? It is like all other shlokas. Oh Krishna, you are great, you are this, you are that. Yes or no? Right? Only thing is, there is this thing, there is a protocol called the Katapayadi Sankhya. Okay? It took me a long time to learn to pronounce that. Yeah, so there is this Katapayadi Sankhya where they give particular alphabets, particular numbers. So for example, Katapaya is 1 and so on. And then if you substitute these numbers in this shloka, you know what you get? The value of pi correct to 30 decimal places. Yeah, so we knew how to do encryption also.
So Sankhya is the anatomical study. Sankhya means analysis, to analyze. So it's the anatomical study that the Tattvadarshi or the seeker of the truth or the Dhira, that person uses this system of knowledge to try to assess matter. And because it's so advanced, it even describes the manifestation from the subtle, unmanifested, right up to the gross level, the manifested level. And we can see the hierarchy of these 5 elements of nature, that from these 5 elements we finally get the earth experience. So this is a very deep study. If you're interested in this, it's found in the 3rd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavat Purana. And it's very deeply and scientifically assessed there. So Sankhya is a lifestyle.